Welcome to the Wealthy Speaker Podcast, the show that offers you tips and strategies to help speakers build the business of their dreams. Now here's your host, 30-year industry veteran and business coach, Jane Atkinson.
Well, welcome everyone to the Wealthy Speaker Podcast. Today we are talking about being exceptional despite setbacks in speaking. And I'm excited to have my friend and former client here. Welcome, Annie Meehan.
Thank you so much. Great to see you, Jane, and great to be with you.
Well, I'm excited to catch up with you. It's been a little while since we've talked last. Now tell everybody, just as a starting point, what your current business model looks like. Who are your clients? What kind of engagements are you doing right now?
Yeah, primarily speaking, but I do some individual and group coaching as well. I work with a variety. So healthcare, which under that is a lot of different from medical. Lee Health just booked me. I do senior housing, luxury senior housing. I do associations. Multifamily housing has become a great new client for me in partnership, and then hospitality as well. I have a variety of clients, but yeah, I'm out there and I'm grateful.
That's beautiful. And are you doing mostly keynotes or keynotes and workshops, or what's the combo?
Yeah, mostly selling the keynote. And then once I book that, I always offer to stay on and do a breakout for an additional fee.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so we're talking today about setbacks and resilience. And gosh, when I think in the industry about I have seen you bounce back from so much, Annie. So I know that most everybody who's listening had probably bounced back from COVID, and you did, like everybody else. Talk a little bit about that, and then I want to kind of move on to the next one.
Yeah, COVID was a huge hit. So in 2019, by December of 2019, I had 110 engagements booked for 2020. And I was on the stage March 13th of 2020 at the Mall of America, Radisson Blu, speaking for a leadership conference. And the governor was announcing at 1:15 that they were shutting down the state. And so I remember the room, we were supposed to have 350 people and 100 vendors. We had 50 vendors, 250 people. And by 1:17, the room was empty except for me, my videographer, and my photographer. And so we just saw life change, right? And 2020, in addition to COVID hitting, we lost we didn't lose. We chose to sell our home, our family home we had lived in for 25 years. So we were physically transitioning my career. I was having to pivot, as everyone did, and remembering to keep going, that this was a call and it would be hard, but I could keep going. So.
Yeah. And you got into doing some virtual, which kept the boat afloat. And you made a move during that time to Florida, beautiful Florida. And I remember you telling me about this condo on the beach and how amazing it was. And I was so excited for you. And what was the year that in 2022, here you moved in 2021?
And October 28th of 2021.
And when was the Hurricane Ian?
September 28th of 2022. So exactly 11 months to the day that we had moved here. And you and I working together, it was my dream, my 30-year dream. Like, Jane, I'm going to live on a beach. I'm going to work from a beach. And you're like, you're doing it. I'm like, yes. So it was 30 years.
Yeah. And I love the living a dream idea. I can remember you going down to the beach every morning and just being filled up by this lifestyle that is, and my husband and I have spent a lot of time in Fort Myers. So we really kind of knew what it was. I understood the vision you were going for. And here you were on, which floor were you on this condo building? Third?
Fourth floor, but 5 stories up.
Okay, 5 stories up. And this hurricane hits. And I really paid attention to this one more than most because of, we were heading down there, I don't know how many months later. So there were some things that were very traumatic about this for you. And I don't want to trigger you. So I'm going to let you lead the way and tell the story of what was the worst part about it for you? I think it was during the storm, was it not?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I'm in therapy now, so you're not going to trigger me. I'm doing pretty dang good. But
Yay.
yeah, it does give you PTSD. I think the worst part is actually we stayed, which when you live in the Midwest, you think, why would anyone stay? But it wasn't supposed to hit here. And we did advise some people that had lived here a long time, and they had kind of said, no, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. And so we did.
I would have thought you'd be fine up 5 stories.
Right, and 5
Yeah.
stories up, and 22 hours in a storeroom with no windows in a violently shaking building with 2 little puppies. And so it was terrifying, and water coming in. So water came in all our doors and windows. So people say, did you lose your house? No, we live in a German engineered condo, which is like a castle, like concrete castle, but all the doors and windows, water came in. Many people, their doors and windows blew out. Ours bowed, glasses broke. But the wind violently shakes over 150 miles an hour and over 15-foot surges. So hundreds, if not thousands of people died. I think one of the hardest parts, Jane, was definitely the 22 hours in the storeroom, but also was like the questioning of, was this dream meant to be a reality? And I was so happy when I fulfilled it. And then it was like, wait a minute, maybe this isn't meant to be my dream. And I think I questioned that. And we had sold everything. Like we had bet it all on Florida. We didn't keep a place in Florida. So that was a big, like,
Yeah. You were questioning. I remember your video from right before the storm. You're kind of going around preparing, and you're kind of still in a very light state. And then after the storm, it's like, oh, devastation. And you joked there a second ago about PTSD, but I'm sure that has been come out during your counseling, that is legit. Yes, we know that people who go to Afghanistan and Iraq, they experience it as well. And it's different, and it's obviously on a different scale. But PTSD is PTSD, and it's no joke. And I'm so happy to hear that you have been getting some help about that. So, okay, so now your house is demolished, and you have to tear everything. Basically, it's a gut job because no drywall or anything would survive it.
No, it's not a gut. That's why I don't want people to think it was.
Okay.
Yes, there was walls out. So walls under every window were out, but the walls in the inner were fine. So they had to replace some of the walls, but not all the walls. And some water came in, but we're not like flooded. Like some people's houses were to the ceiling or gone. We did not. We are 5 stories up, and yet still, even 16 stories up in our building, water still came in because the wind was so crazy. So our ceiling fan blew so wild in the 150-mile-an-hour winds, it went through the screens and ripped out all the screens, and the just shatters of screws everywhere. And it was something, but we do still have a building. We weren't allowed to live here. There was no power, no water. It was unsafe.
You were displaced for how long?
September 28th to February 10th.
September to February. So here you are. And did you have speaking engagements booked between September and February? Like when was your first
I had a lot between. So I'm like thinking, I feel like my first one was like October 7th.
Oh my goodness.
I think, and they offered to let me cancel, and they switched to virtual. Yeah, it was in person. They offered to let me cancel. I said, I don't want to cancel. Like I need work. That helps my brain.
Yeah.
Focus on something I can control. And, or feel like I have a purpose. And so I did that one virtually. And Stephen Tweed and Elizabeth Jeffries, who are part of NSA, who I had never met Elizabeth, I had met Stephen once, opened their home because we literally walked off the island. Our car floated away. It was something. We had a grocery cart and a wagon, 2 dogs, 3 computers, and 2 bags of clothes is what we walked off. And we weren't able to come back for a while. Just, it wasn't safe. So
like we're talking serious devastation here. So your first gig is October 7th, and you're trying to, so there's a lot to this story. I mean, walking off island with a grocery cart with your worldly belongings in that is there's just so much to this story. And yet you have to keep going. You have to make money.
Yes.
And you need, because guess what? There's a whole bunch of things that you're going to have to pay out of pocket for, including a place to live for what? 4 months, 5 months,
Yeah.
September, October, November, December, January, February, 6 months. Wow. So you had to keep working during this. So tell me, what was your resilient interior that muscled up enough to keep you going and to even do that first engagement?
Jane, that's a great question that I don't even know that I've ever thought about. Well, one thing that, as you asked that, what I think about is I always kind of joke about my brain's a pinball machine and my husband's is file cabinets. But in the midst of crisis, you have to have file cabinets. And my file for I can go and I can present and I can use my words and my work to help other people. And one of the first speaking engagements, I believe that October 7th, was social services in northern Minnesota. And I remember thinking, now is the time to go back to what you know and to give them relevance of the value of what they do. And so I really went into my file cabinet of like, this is going to be a work function. And I did. When I started, I said, hey, you guys, I'm kind of in the midst of a crisis and tears might come. And a couple of tears came during that first presentation. And I remember them just saying, you get us and you get our work so well. So it was a really used as a powerful tool. And when I get done with work, that doesn't mean I'm not in tears or just trying to breathe, feeling so unbalanced and I'm not grounded anymore. And I'm a huge believer, Jane, in set the stage every morning for how I want to show up as a human being, as a business owner, as a speaker, as a writer, as a coach. So I mean, this morning I was up at 5, some mornings I'm up at 4, but that sacred darkness and silence that I begin with before I do the work I get to do in the world, just it's a lifesaver for me to be able to be functional, let alone successful.
So asking yourself, okay, so there's a couple of tips here I just want to pull out. First off, when you went to the social services gig, you focused on them and their needs. And I cannot tell you how much in a crisis, even if you've had a knock off the horse, like let's say you had a bad outing and you had to go out and do another one right away. And you were, I don't know if I can get back on the horse. When you take your focus off of yourself and onto the audience and think about them and their needs, which I know you are amazing at doing this, Annie, that allows you to then show up for them and for you to just say, I'm kind of going through something right now. Just bear with me. You're just being vulnerable. You're just being in the moment. And we do say that we don't necessarily want speaking to be therapy for you. Like there's a little line that we have to be careful not to cross there. So that's number one, is focus on them and not yourself. But as soon as humanly possible, get back to your normal morning routine. I've been in a bit of a caregiving crisis for the last, I guess it's been maybe 5 or 6 months now. First, my mom broke her hip and we were starting to get her back to walking again and starting to see some success. Then she fell and broke her leg, back in the hospital. Then it's been multiple hospital visits in between. And so when I lose myself completely in that role of caregiver, I'm not going for my morning walks. I'm not doing the treadmill. I'm not, journaling or doing any of the things. And so you had to, how long was it after the hurricane hit before you got back into any kind of semblance of morning routine for yourself?
Yeah, we stayed at Stephen and Elizabeth's for 3 weeks, I believe. And it probably the first 2 weeks, I like just to drink a glass of water was a really big deal. Like just to think and not be tearing up and not just be whatever, but quickly something. Having dogs has been a great, as much as they can be a pain, they can be a saving grace because they force you to go for walks, right? Whether you feel like or not, like I need to go outside. I need to go to the bathroom.
And let's just note that your dog was blind at the time, right? This is the dog. Is this dog still alive? Oh, I'm sorry.
A year ago March. So that was Peanut.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Now we're gonna. I'm triggering you on another topic here. I'm so sorry, but having one blind dog and another dog in a hurricane, not fun.
no, more
Like,
challenging. And that's the thing about disruption, Jane, right? Is like, it doesn't wait for you to
yeah.
get settled from the hurricane before you have another disruption of, I lost a sister and a dog in the last year and a half. And so
Oh,
from the storm. And so I just think that's life. And if, like for me, what you said, and when I coach other people on being speakers, it's got to be about the audience. It doesn't matter how great your story is or how tragic or how beautiful. It's
yeah.
got to be about them. But if I think like, okay, if I'm going through this, someone in my audience is going through this, one of their clients is going through this. So how do I serve them?
Yeah.
But slowly, to answer your question, slowly, water, walks with the dog, then realizing, get up early, Annie, you'll be better. You'll be better. Even if you're tired, even if you're exhausted, get up, give yourself some prayer time, give yourself some movement, give yourself some journaling, give yourself some breath, just breath work in the morning to ground me. You're okay. You're safe. Like I remember so many times saying, I don't feel okay, but at least I'm safe. I don't feel okay, but I'm safe. That reminder helped me show up in front of a computer for my clients, doing one-on-one coaching and getting out of my own head and my own stuff to
Yeah.
pour into other people.
I want to also pull out something that what you did in the moment was that you recognized when you were having helpful thoughts and when you were having not helpful thoughts. So that one that at least I feel safe. What was that thought?
I'm not okay.
I'm not okay, but at least I am safe.
I am not
That,
okay.
that was the best you could do in that moment in terms of as thoughts go.
Yeah.
If your thought would have only been, I'm not okay, I'm not okay, I'm not okay, guess where that would have taken you?
That's right.
Into a spirally downward place. But at least I'm safe started to bring your head back up to the surface to take a bit of air. So focus on the audience, get quiet, get your morning routine going, really pay attention to your thoughts. I've had this save my bacon a couple of times during my caregiving process. On Mother's Day, we had the worst outing with the plan was to take my mom down to the dining room for lunch. And I mean, basically she was in this catatonic state and there was no taking her anywhere. She ate like a bite of food and it was just a really, really bad Alzheimer's day for her. And I was so upset when I left there. And then I gave myself a little talking to, and I'm like, wait a second, Jane, you have a mother. You are celebrating Mother's Day and you have a mother. Let's focus on that. Completely brought me out of the doldrums and back onto it. And I know we're talking very different situations here. I didn't lose my entire home, my dream.
It is the shift. And you and I have talked
Yeah.
about that a lot together about
Yes.
what are we going to feed into this or this? There's always perspective, right? This or this. And I remember it was also okay to say no to things. Like people right after the hurricane were like, write a book. You should do a keynote. This will give you more material. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to get back to my home.
I
like,
can't take a
what you can't
drink of
do.
water. Yeah.
Right.
I'm not in that place yet. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. But no.
Yeah.
I like that you said no. And there was something else that I know you did during this process, which was like doing the consistent work despite circumstances. There's a good chance that you weren't doing any outreach during that time, but were you looking at emails and answering and responding and continuing to move forward with gigs that were already on the books? I mean, you had to do that consistent work, and that probably kept you or got you back into the flow.
Yeah, definitely looking, not always responding. If it wasn't urgent, giving myself some grace to not respond quickly.
Yes.
One thing I did, because I was getting so much outreach, and I'm grateful for that, I'm not complaining, whether it was past clients, current clients, or friends and family, is I started doing YouTube videos because I could not, or lives, because I couldn't respond to everybody.
Yeah.
And I learned a new word during trauma. And my daughter said, that's trauma dumping. When someone asks you how you are, and then they tell you something they've gone through, and I couldn't hold it. And
Yeah.
being an empath, for me, I had to leave some space with that. But I was really good about at least every other day, if not every day, check your email. Whatever I could do to feel a bit normal, a bit
Yeah.
grounded, a bit regulated, is like, okay, what would you normally do? Okay, check your email. And
Yeah.
one thing, Jane, that helped me was I have systems in place for my business, and I have days that I focus on certain things. I have writing days, I have speaking days, I have motivation days, I have vlog days, blog days. Having that already in place, when something happened, I was like, okay, what would I normally do on a Wednesday? What does a Friday look like when I'm not just trying to be in survival mode? So definitely did some of that, didn't do it to the extent that I typically do it, but gave myself a lot of grace.
I'm glad you did, because beating yourself up over not doing things when you're just out flat,
Yeah.
what's the point, right? Would you beat up somebody else if you saw them doing the same thing? No, of course, you'd speak kindly to them and you'd have empathy for them. And you just mentioned something, you are an empath. Talk a little bit about that and what that means for you and your work. I know what it means from me as your coach, is that you do things that I would say no to financially. I'm always, encouraging you to stand tall in your fees, but I'll just set that aside. Talk about what being an empath means.
Well, first, because I'm compassionate to other people's needs is part of it. But an empath, actually, I feel people's feels. So when they call me and they're in their own crisis or devastation, or their organization is, or they don't have enough money to pay me and they can't afford me at what I typically charge, I always want to work with people. So I feel things. A danger of that as professional speakers: one, you don't always ask for what you're worth and what you know you deserve. But two is that I have to, again, going back to my morning routine, I have to protect myself. So when I get done speaking, many times people will come up to me and they want to tell me their story. And what they usually lead with is the biggest trauma in their story: their abuse, their homelessness, they're getting fired, the bankruptcy, whatever it is. And they lay it on me. I'm not a therapist for a big reason of I'm not good at separating always. But having that boundary to say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry I've gone through that. And then sometimes people say, can I coach with you? And I'll say, it depends on the situation. Sometimes I say yes, but a lot of times, if it's a trauma, I'll say, I really encourage you to start with therapy. And
Yes.
it's part of me protecting myself at the beginning of my day and the end of my day, having time with Greg at the end of the day. And I call movement is medicine. So because I live across the street from the beach, I walk the beach 1 to 4 times every day.
Mm.
I have to move. I have to release that. So I talk about walk it out, talk it out, relieving stress. So instead of caring, an empath feels what you feel in the midst of your own crisis. So to protect myself and kind of cleanse myself and ground, I release it into the ocean and let that story and someone's trauma go there so that I can keep going forward.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And I'm sure you've been in many hotel rooms and you've had to try to figure out a way to do that there as well.
Yeah.
And um,
you might see me walking hallways at a hotel. I really do walk
yeah.
and release. So or the treadmill or outside if it's decent outside.
And we've totally glossed over your entire backstory, which is a huge part of who you are and where you are in your, but resilience really is something that you embody to a degree that, I just haven't seen before. Talk about your book writing. You're up for an award right now. Tell us about that.
I am up for award. So my 8th book. So I did finally write the book, but I didn't start it till January with the coach of Rachel Ryan. I can't even talk. She was my book coach. Choose to Soar is a finalist in the National Independent Book Publishing Awards. I will find out June 28th. So
That's
I
so
just found
exciting.
out about a month ago. Yeah. So I wrote about it. And what I realized, Jane, is that this book is inspired by the hurricane and about soaring above. But what I realized is we all have disruption, right? We have literal, we have professional, and we have personal disruption. So that is not even negotiable. But what we do with it, I don't want to just survive. I kept thinking people would say, just survive and thrive, survive and thrive. And I was like, that's not who I am. I
Yeah.
have to soar above it. I have to soar above my circumstances and not let the disruptions of my life define who I am and the good work I get to do. And so thank you. This is my 8th book. I released a 9th book since. I'm working on 2 more. Like I just get excited. I'm doing like 12 things. You know me, Jane. Like I have a vision. I'm working with a mentor from SCORE right now. And I was saying the other day, my dream, my desire is that my written and spoken words will impact 1 million lives for good.
Oh, that's cool. Well, I want to circle back and finish with the dream.
Okay.
So let's go back 10 years ago.
Okay.
You're living in Minnesota. You're speaking for peanuts.
But look at me now.
And here we are, and you're freezing through the whole winter time. Not that Minnesota isn't an absolutely beautiful state, by the way, you guys. Fast forward to your life now. You wondered if the dream wasn't meant to be during the hurricane or after the hurricane. It was like, wait, what? You had to fight for your dream. And you fight and clawed and built and rebuilt your way back to the dream. Could you have imagined 10 years ago that this would be your life?
I think I imagined it, but I don't know if I ever believed it.
Mm.
And actually, Greg and I sat on our lanai this weekend, and we're still under the midst of major construction. So
Yes.
it's very loud outside. I'm glad you
All
came.
around you. Yes.
But
Yes.
it's all like
Fort Myers Beach was decimated. They really anticipated it was going to go north of you, and it didn't, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
So there's still a lot of noise and disruption. Our pool's still not open, and the grounds are kind of chaos in the parking lot. But Greg and I sat on the lanai, and I said, we are so extraordinarily blessed. We have an amazing life. First of all, we like each other. That's huge.
Yay.
I get to do work that I love and it has great meaning. Third of all, I get paid really well for it, Jane.
Yes.
Fourth of all, we have 3 adult kids that want to talk to us. Like, we're healthy. We've lost so many friends and family in the last year and a half that are sick or lost, and I was like, this is we were sitting watching the ocean, and we were just talking about who gets to do this. Like, who ever really, so yeah, 10 years ago, I don't think so. I think I was like, that'd be so cool if someday, and Greg would be like, it's never going to happen. Who's going to live in Florida? And look at us now. So yeah.
I love that. And my husband and I, John, who we also like each other, yay. We sit out on the porch overlooking, the dock with the pontoon and the lake. And it's like, wow, this was exactly the vision. I had my vision, oh gosh, like 30 years ago for this life. There was going to be water involved and kids and grandkids. We have 6 grandchildren, and seeing them out there on the kayaks and the paddle boards playing and laughing and giggling, it is like the best ever. So I'm feeling very, very blessed also. So everybody, this is the path to living your dream. When setbacks are going to happen, which is, I'm in the middle of a caregiving crisis. You've been through many, many, many setbacks, and lots that we didn't even review. That would have taken the whole hour. We need to focus outside ourselves on our clients. We need to do the work consistently. What would you normally be doing on a Tuesday? You'd be answering client emails. Okay, get to that. You need to do your morning routine. And first and foremost, I think, is really manage your thoughts. Be aware of when you are telling yourself something over and over again that is not serving you. I'm not okay. Just that alone, without anything else with it, would not be a helpful thought. And it would take you down and down and down the rabbit hole. So, Annie, tell everybody what they should do if they want to reach out to you. How would you like them to connect with you?
Yeah, I love to connect with people through LinkedIn. I try to post at least 5 days a week there, encouragement, ideas, questions, thoughts, just to engage. I really love communication and connection. And that's where I love to connect with people. So,
Beautiful. Annie Meehan, Meehan. Go find her on LinkedIn. And I love how focused that was. Awesome. Because I know you're on lots of social medias, but telling people one place is the bomb.
yeah.
Thank you so much for being with us here today. I appreciate you sharing your story. And I'm so happy and excited for you that you're living your dream.
Thank you so much for being part of the team. All right. Thank you, Jane. Take care. Thank you.
All right. We'll see you soon, Wealthy Speakers. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Wealthy Speaker Podcast. If you need help building the speaking business of your dreams, head over to wealthyspeakerschool.com and take advantage of our 20-minute next step call. Thanks for listening to the Wealthy Speaker Podcast.